Hey, how's it going? In this game, I'm joined by Zach and Heath, and we're flying, various versions of the P-47D in a realistic battle on Ruhr. Yeah, the Jug. No, just to be clear, we're not the fighter cover. We're the bombers. Well, wait just a minute. That's a P-47. It's a fighter, you moron. What's up with the misleading title? This title said you would be showing us the best medium bomber in the game in realistic battles. Okay, that's valid. It certainly can be a fighter, and a pretty good one. But loaded out like this, it doesn't handle like a fighter. Look at the size of those things strapped under the wings, and try to tell me it's not a bomber. Fine, whatever. Being technical, it's a fighter-bomber. Typically, the more roles an aircraft takes on, the more the design has to be compromised to fulfill each role. So it makes the Thunderbolt competitive against a dedicated bomber, like a Dornier or a Mitchell. It depends on how they're used. In our case, the difference between us and medium bombers is that you'll rarely see us coming, and we turn back into fighters once we ditch our payload. Bombers at bomber altitude are extremely easy to spot. A small group of fighters at treetop level, much less so. It's common to see groups of enemy fighters passing above you who have no idea you're there. You might nervously look up, dodge a tree, and wait for them to turn after you, but they just keep on flying. This makes you feel like a base-wrecking ninja, and that's pretty cool. Our plan here is to stick together and sneak to the bombing points. And that's pretty much the entirety of our strategy. And really, that's all you really need to plan. By the time you take out a couple bombing points, people start catching on, and the other team can provide the rest of the game's excitement for you. Yes, there are a lot of aircraft in the game that can fulfill this role, especially in the American tech tree, where pretty much any fighter can strap on bombs. But none so effectively as the P-47, because of its size. It's huge. It's one of the largest single reciprocating engine aircraft ever created. But it is still able to salvage a surprising amount of maneuverability. Its max takeoff weight is 17,500 pounds, which means there's a lot of room for lots of engine, lots of armor, and lots of payload and armament. This size is manageable because the airframe is built around the Pratt & Whitney Double Wasp. As a general principle, when you attach a propeller to a 2600 horsepower engine, you're in business. The design of the Thunderbolt left it very open to becoming a multi-role fighter. I'm not sure if it was meant to be, but it just naturally progressed into being a multi-role fighter. When it first entered service in 1943, one of its major roles was that of bomber escort. But it couldn't make it all the way at first. It didn't have long enough range. So on its way back, when it was just the fighters, they would take out targets of opportunity along the way and make ground attacks. And it turned out to be very good at it because its heavy armament was havoc on lightly armored vehicles. And it was so tough. It was heavily armored and had an engine that could withstand ground fire, unlike a P-51. It wasn't liquid cooled, it was air cooled. That makes a big difference. You can't be taken out so easily by, rifle caliber fire. You had to be hit with something substantial to go down. With all this horsepower, naturally we started strapping crap onto it if it's going to be attacking ground targets. And standard armament became 2 1,000-pound bombs and 1 500-pound bomb, which is more than half the payload that would be put on a B-17 for a long-range mission. That's quite a lot for a fighter to be packing along. Or it could be loaded out with 10 4.5-inch or 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets. In the game, they're very generous with us. They let us take the bombs and the rockets in a single loadout. One thing that cannot be overemphasized is the fact that This thing has 8 50 caliber machine guns. 8. Forget cannons, think about that. The way the game measures firepower is the 1 second burst mass of the offensive armament. So in 1 second, how much weight and projectiles are you throwing? Why? No. It's not the burst mass that matters here, but the sheer number of projectiles that you are capable of spewing at an enemy. Or from another perspective, how many chances are you given to light a target's fuel tanks on fire? It's going to happen with extreme consistency. Playing against the Japanese can be hilarious. Now, the P-47 is not a good dogfighter at low altitudes. In its heyday, above 35,000 feet was great. It could turn inside Me-109 or Focke-Wulf, anything the Germans had at the higher altitudes with its propeller and turbo supercharger. These were great assets, but at low altitude that's not the case. It cannot climb or churn well at low altitudes. But if someone is dumb enough to attack you from the front, they're going to pay for it. This is a dangerous aircraft that doesn't seem to get a lot of respect. It is appalling, just amazing, the number of players in realistic battles who will go head on with you, or straight up ignore you, and stay on their course as you slot in on them. But that's okay. The more people there are who do not recognize you as a threat, the better things tend to go. There are a lot of things you can call players like that, but if you can, and if you get the chance, call them victims. But with all certainty, this video is not about being a fighter. This video is about playing it the wrong way, like we're doing. Talking about the best bomber in realistic battles. Now, if you want to learn the right way to use this as a fighter, MagzTV is very good. I'll probably put a link in the description to his channel. He is, again, he's the one to watch if you want to know how to do it right. Now, a lot of people, if they see this, would cringe at us using these fighters in this way, because these games aren't won by playing the objectives. Sounds crazy. Whoever loses all the vehicles first clearly loses. Well, don't get me wrong, it is possible to win by playing the objectives. That just doesn't happen much, and when it does, it's either epic or an extreme failure, which makes it a very arguable case that loading our fighters out the way we did is doing little but shooting our team in the foot. The amount of drag, yet alone the weight of all this stuff hanging on the bottom of the wing, is smothering our performance as fighter aircraft, which is, again, a lot more important. But we're, admittedly selfish here. We're farming credits and experience by blowing up these bases. They're worth a non-negligible amount. Zach is ahead of me, and I'm kind of escorting him. Heath is off doing his own thing because he doesn't have the payload unlocked to go after a base on his own. He just has the one 500-pound bomb. But again, that's okay, because it doesn't matter. Zach and I have both taken damage from AA. He had a slight navigational lapse, where he was going to go for the middle base, but instead he flew past the airfield and went to the far base. The jug is very rugged, but flak is flak, and our cooling systems are leaking oil pretty good. Well, mine certainly is. He said his oil and if the entire front half of his plane was orange. So that's always a good sign. So he's confined himself to flying in a straight line. He's going to try to get these bombs off and get back to base. Now he doesn't quite finish it, so I'm going to negative G just a lot and take care of that. Now Heath is doing other things. He's been strafing anti-aircraft guns this entire time. And whereas Zach and I try to avoid the trees, just watch, Heath has been channeling his inner scientist and seeing how much of the tree he can hit before the game notices he's hitting trees. It's either gutsy or he just, I don't know, pretty indifferent about whether he lives or not. Meanwhile, Zach and I are in serious trouble. We have both suffered damage from flak to our oil system. We have been leaking such a substantial amount of oil that our engines have been threatening off and on to seize, and we're not sure whether or not we'll make it back to that middle airfield, the forward air base in the map. We're trying though, but while we're flying we're kind of inspecting each other's aircraft, looking at the damage, and all we see in the game are these little intermittent puffs of smoke. Now, we both see on our own screen that we're billowing smoke, and the replay system is extremely buggy, so we can't trust that. But it's just weird that we're not seeing the same things the other person's seeing. So it leaves you kind of curious. What does the enemy see? Are we a very obvious, visible target to them? Or do we look weakened, or do we look just fine? We have no way of knowing. When we start closing in on our forward airbase, we find that, to our dismay, most of, if not the entire enemy team is right here. Zach has to land and repair. He doesn't have a choice. I can make it for a little longer, and Heath is in surprisingly good shape despite his empirical tree trimming. I would like to land and get patched up, but we can't all land. If we were all on the ground, there wouldn't be anyone to stop the fighters from strafing us on the runway. The biggest threat is that group of 109s, so Heath and I are going to keep them occupied until we can get some help, and give Zach some time to get back in the air. That's all we're doing, is buying time. They're all Messerschmitts and can all outturn us at this altitude, so our prospects of doing anything more than buying time are not so good. Heath is still a bit behind me. That guy ahead of me is in a lot of trouble. It looks like it's about to be 3-1. Oh, crap. Yep, there it is. And I need to start picking a target real quickly. Now that guy, he's splitting off. We're going to go for him. Hopefully he'll take us up in the head-on pass. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Alright, there we go, there we go. We'll let him burn, let him go. Pay our attention to the other two. But it looks like they're going away. They're bugging out. Doesn't make sense. They could both turn inside of me. I don't know if they've run out of ammo, fuel, or courage pills, whatever the case may be. That turned out better than we could have hoped for. We can deal with them later. Now Heath is locked onto the guy I lit on fire earlier who went out. Heath relit him on fire and has secured the kill. So now I'm safe to go back to the airfield and, well, get myself repaired, finally. And that's my very happy smoke trail, and I'm turning in to land. So you can start to see the beauty of these machine guns. They may not have the raw destructive force of cannons, but with the better fire rate, better accuracy, muzzle velocity, and ammo capacity, all can be forgiven. With machine guns you can fire a burst with a large quantity of bullets that each have the potential to do lots of damage if they strike a critical portion of the aircraft, like a fuel tank, a control surface or cable, an engine, or the pilot for that matter. The Army-Navy M2 Brownings fire 750 to 850 rounds per minute, meaning that in the P-47 you have the potential to strike an enemy with 50 to 56 50 caliber bullets for every half a second of sustained fire. This is a lot of opportunity to do harm. American fighters have a reputation for carrying a lot of ammo, which is a major asset in realistic battles where the ammo fairy doesn't just come around and replenish you. Ammo capacity is limited by the actual weight of the guns and cartridges, and the available space within the wing or fuselage to carry the ammunition, neither of which is really a problem with a Thunderbolt. It comes as no surprise that with 8 machine guns,
the P-47 carries more ammo than any American fighter. It may, however, be a little surprising that it carries more ammunition per gun than any Allied aircraft in the game, with the exception of the Lightning. This means that you can afford to be less conservative with your ammunition as Heath has. He's been strafing ground targets this whole game. The P-47 can take out light tanks and light pillboxes, and it's nice to be able to afford the ammo to waste on them. Now, Zach was taking off about the time I was coming to a stop. He accidentally loaded his full payload again, but he's gotten rid of his bombs, and he's going to try to finish off the bomber that Heath was working on. Now, it's worth saying that though he got rid of his bombs, he still had his rockets, and that is just glorious every time. That was beautiful. So, kudos to you. You deserve it.
I apologize for losing my voice a little bit there. I record these over multiple days just whenever I get the time to tinker with it, so some days are good, some days are, well, had a bit of a scratchy throat there, so I beg your pardon. Heath's landing, I'm taking off, and Zach's coming around to join me. There are only 2 people left on the enemy team. They're the same 2 fighters who, thankfully, ran off earlier. All that is left for us to do is hunt them down. I had little doubt that the enemy fighters would come right up the middle of the map. That's how they came to the fight, that's how they left the fight, and that's probably how they'd return to the fight. Our team has 7 or 8 planes left. You can't ever call a game a lock, but we're feeling pretty good about our odds. When I rearmed, I, like Zach, forgot to change my loadout. I am carrying a full load, even though they're not visible in the replay, because who knows. There's no need to be playing as a bomber now. There wasn't really any need in the first place, but there's certainly no need now. However, since I had the payload and went through all that trouble of, pressing the W key and taking off, I thought that while I was headed across the map looking for the enemy fighters, I could pack my ghost bombs along, maybe strafe some ground units, and take out that last base. With bombs on, Zach should catch up pretty quick and Heath not too far behind him, and our merry band could be back together. This plan had the perk that if someone else found the enemies first, we could still be getting experience. Like, I thought I could bust pillboxes, but I didn't load ground belts. Zach, how come it works for you? Because you're using Omni. But at the time this seemed like a good idea, but in hindsight it's kind of one of those WoW plans, not in a good way, like the WoW when you hear about someone who was going to rob a place, they didn't cut holes in the mask, and they had to lift the mask up to talk to the clerk. That sort of WoW plan. Let's just pause here for a moment. Things are about to start happening pretty fast, and I want to make sure the situation's clear. This right here is what happened because the plan worked exactly as planned. It was just really stupid. Congratulations, you found them. Oh crap, they're going to kill you because you're easy to spot, daddling along in a P-47 at low altitude, and you set yourself up for failure. By putting ourselves in this position, we have lost any edge we could have had over them. We would have been at a serious disadvantage if we met them at equal altitude. Instead, they have a massive energy advantage. We are so screwed. And the only chance we have is them messing up. If we can help them in this matter by tempting them to make bad decisions, that's great, but if they're any good, they won't fall for it. Let's resume. I drop my invisible bombs, I'm pulling up at him. That's never going to happen. So I nose down and prepare to start breaking into his dives. Thing is, since he has such a massive energy advantage, if he does get down within firing range in his dives, he is going to be going so fast that his window is going to be really small. Also, that means he has to take more altitude to recover from a dive. So I'm going to descend a little bit dangerously while I break into his turn. so he has to recover to even lower altitude. There you go. Not the most patient person. I could have been his for the taking, but got a little bit greedy. There's probably a little bit of drool involved at how easy of a kill I was, and he blew it. I am now free to help Zach, and that is their last plane. He can outturn either of us, but not both of us if we're working together. I need to kill him or distract him. I'm not a good enough shot apparently to kill him, so I'm going to leave that to Zach, and I will just be the bait. So he's going to turn around from my right side. So I'm going to let him on my tail and turn to the left. This gives Zach a lot of wiggle room, because this guy is going to be all about that tunnel vision. All I have to do now is lazily zigzag back and forth while Zach cleans this guy off my tail. It's all about that tunnel vision. And those machine guns. He's still trying to get me. Well, can't blame him. He's dead anyway. When you let someone fly through a burst from your machine guns, it's gonna hurt. And that's exactly what Zach did there. He did the right thing. He let him too much and just let the guy kill himself. And that's all she wrote. That's game. The tickets are running out now. Good work, team. Takeaways? For one, don't let greed and tunnel vision get the best of you. Those guys probably would have lost anyway, but they could have easily killed us. Secondly, flying in a squad with people you can count on not only wins games, but just makes it more enjoyable. This was the first game we played, the only game we didn't record, and the only game we actually won. After this, things started going terribly, beyond awful, but we still had fun. Thirdly, if you ever record yourself speaking, do so in one session so your voice doesn't vary throughout whatever you're putting together. And finally, the entire point of this video, the P-47 is an absolute boss in any game mode. There is no reason to fly a medium bomber in realistic or sim battles when you can take one of these for a spin. If you have realistic expectations and all that stuff, you will not be disappointed. So, I thank you for watching, have a good one, and God bless.